Yes, I'm with Deputy Bob Hill, who's announced his candidature for the next election in October. The same Bob Hill, is it?
I hope to be, yes. Can't see any reason to change.
You've got particular interests, obviously parish interests. What are the burning issues parish-wise?
Well, I think one thing we're going to have to look at, which is the new rectory. What we're going to demolish, sell, restore. That's one of the things we've got. Certainly the issue of the school. We're going to replace the existing school and put it on the school field. Don't see a problem with that. However, there is a problem about the school or the parish football pitch, so we've got to find an alternative to that. We've also got the long-standing problem with the MOFOR. It was developed 30 years ago, and it has a peculiar covenant on the deeds of everyone there, and they are responsible for the maintenance of the roads, even though they pay their full rates. And what we're looking for actually is, now the roads have been refurbished, is to go back and for the parish to accept the roads as part of the parish rates. Fun enough, accepting or following through a decision that was made in 1979. So it's over 30 years the decision was taken to transfer, and they still haven't. So there we are. So those are the main issues I can see for the parish.
It's going to be a contested election. How many other candidates are likely?
Only one, but I've been used to contested elections. It's rather strange actually for country parishes. A lot of country parishes, the deputies don't get opposed, but I don't have a problem with that. I think it's good for democracy, and at least no one in St Martin's can't say they don't see their deputy, because, as you know, my bike and I get around the parish, so I'm in regular contact with the parishioners. They see me, we do discuss things across the gate, and so I don't have a problem.
The fact that there's the three levels of election this time, senators, constables and deputies all in one town, how do you think that'll work out?
No doubt there will be the odd minor problem when you're going to get a deluge of people. I hope there's a deluge of people. Normally in St Martin's we get a good turnout, so I'm hoping there will be a number of people there. What they will be doing this year, we're going to have two lots of entrances, so to speak, so we'll be able to double up the number of people going through. But always has been a problem in St Martin's, as indeed with other parishes. I know when I go to Trinity, it doesn't take long for a queue.
Do you think it might have been a good idea to have some outside observers in? Because it is quite an important it's the first general election that Jersey's ever had, really.
Sorry, you have some outside
observers. You know, we're very fond, if Zimbabwe has an election, we send observers. Do you think perhaps Zimbabwe ought to send elections?
I don't
observers?
think so. I think generally speaking they're well run and there isn't a problem. The only problem you have is that probably sometimes it takes a long time for people actually to go through the system, but and also because you have 2 or 3 people at one time actually casting their vote. But again, it's something you live with, and I don't see a major problem.
It might be more of a problem in the town constituencies.
Yes, although
bigger numbers, different, complicated names.
We do get that crocodile up and down. You know, it's wonderful to see, but it just, you can understand how some people are concerned about the time. Hopefully this year people will take the opportunity of going to St Paul's Church or the St Paul's Centre to be able to cast their vote during the working day, and I can envisage problems there, because if you're having 12 parishes going along there, and probably people that pop along at my lunchtime, and they'll probably find a bigger queue there is what they will do in some of the country parishes, or any parish indeed.
And there's the possibility of a referendum to add on top of it as well.
I don't think that's a start. It's too late. It may well be a good idea maybe 12 months ago, but I'm not even sure whether it is a referendum issue. I think that's an issue. You know, we've agreed to this new law. I'm not terribly happy about the 1-1 code. I think I wonder if it is, because I think it's a discriminatory piece of legislation to the advantage of a very few number of people. However, one's got to weigh up the checks and balances, the money they're bringing in. It's a bigger issue, and I don't think it's really one that the public really would understand enough, and it's difficult enough for state members to understand.
You've been a backbencher for all of your career in the States, as far as I know. Do you see yourself as a backbencher? Is that what you think you'll be?
Well, I'm almost a backbencher by choice, I suppose. I've never been asked to become a minister, although in the old system, the committee system, one was very much part of government, and I've been a vice president of a number of committees, but it's under the new system, either you're in, you're out, and I think that's one of the sad parts of this government, is the fact of the inclusive government has never become inclusive. It's become exclusive. And there are a number of people, I include myself, who do have a fair bit of talent, have a fair bit of experience, but it's never been seen to be utilised by those who ministers. In fact, you're almost kept apart, partly because maybe you know too much.
In theory, there's a scrutiny system. If it survives this election, will you be part of the scrutiny system?
No, I think scrutiny's got to have a relook at itself. It's very unusual for any jurisdiction to operate without a proper opposition. And I don't consider myself to be opposition for opposition's sake, because quite often I do support what the executive or the council of ministers coming through. I think there are a number of issues that I can support. However, there are all alternative views, and it's important that those alternative views are put forward. I don't just oppose for the sake of opposing, because as you know, I'm a regular one for putting in or lodging my own propositions. I think I've counted 29 in the last 3 years, and even if you don't win them all, what you are doing, you're bringing forward issues for debate, and I think that's healthy. And one shouldn't say you're putting them in for the sake of opposite views. I'm putting them forward because I think they're constructively thought out. And indeed, quite often what's happened, even though you haven't been successful with your proposition, other issues have come out of it, positives. So again, they're not a waste of time.
One of your themes is international obligations, human rights particularly. For some reason, it's not an issue which many states members share.
It's unfortunate. People can't get excited about. I don't think there's a reason to get terribly excited about, but I think it's one of those issues which should always be bearing in mind. Everything we do has a human right issue, as indeed has a discriminatory issue. And I know recently I was taken to task by Senator Oser when I said we have been shamed, or indeed the Council of Ministers have been shamed into bringing forward a discriminatory law, a discrimination law, and I feel we have. How can we be going out mixing with the rest of the world, and yet back home we don't have any official body having any oversight for discrimination, no oversight for human rights, and yet here we are becoming an international player. We've got to learn to grow up. This could be part and parcel of it. They've promised that they will bring in anti-discrimination laws, but do you think that will? Do you think that is a promise that will be kept? Yes, it's quite interesting actually. It's not going to cost the money they originally thought, and then again it's such a, I get so cross with the Council of Ministers, where if they wanted to get rid of something they immediately say it's too costly. And fun enough, I think you interviewed me about 2 or 3 years ago when we were bringing forward my proposition, which eventually led to the Carswell report, the role of the Crown officers. And that was kicked into touch initially. It wasn't kicked into touch, but it was an attempt to kick into touch by the Council of Ministers, saying it was going to cost too much money. And it turned out, I think, to be about the same amount of money, about £250,000 that costs for clothier. Again, it was so easy for Council of Ministers to kick it into touch by virtue of saying it's going to cost, as indeed recently I call it my potholes proposition. One of the reasons for that being kicked into touch was it was going to cost a fortune, yet no one really worked out and produced a proper paper to say, you know, to justify that claim, but you don't have to for Council of Ministers. Other things probably cost it anyway. I mean, if you think of the island plan, it's a very large document, but does anybody actually costed the implications of the island plan, do you think? No, and we don't really know what the implications are going to be now we've agreed a number of these policies. All the island planners, I think it's just a map, it's an idea, and it'll be developed, and I think we'll still go through the old problems about, you know, is it someone's backyard, is it right, is it wrong, and depends who's making the application. You touched on the Carswell thing. Obviously the question has arisen about the role of the bailiff. Do you think that might get addressed in the next 4 years? Well, as the way it's been reported, it looks as though it can be put on the back burner for 10 years. I can't get terribly excited about whether the bailiff should or should not be be the Speaker of the House, because providing the bailiff is accountable and providing the Crown officers are accountable, I don't have a problem. And unfortunately, with the best intentions of my proposition really was to address this issue, and you were there when I was interviewed, and I felt I was given quite an interesting time by Lord Carswell, but that has been covered over. no one has mentioned about the accountability. And the issues I raised about the issue of the bailiff is that when you make an application for to lodge a proposition, he has the say. He has the only say. There's no opposite view. There's no appeal system. And I haven't had a problem with this particular bailiff because my propositions have gone forward. He's accepted. But I did with a former bailiff. And my concern was that who do I appeal to?